Part of last session, we started knowing about Spring Core module, right? So we understand the importance of Spring Core module because that is the foundation module for everything, right? Everything in generally when we try to implement applications, right? We follow MVC architecture, particularly as we are learning backend development. How many classes usually we will implement? Either you choose .NET, Java or Python, any framework. We write basically three types of classes: controllers, business and DAO classes. So to implement them, Spring given all the support. Different set of modules has been given. But before going to learn that specific modules, we have to learn core module. It helps to understand other modules easily. So all the fundamentals we have there. Yeah. So as per the previous sessions, right? What are the fundamentals that we need to learn or start with? The first thing is POJO class. You need to know what is POJO class. POJO class is nothing but a simple Java class. POJO class is nothing but a simple Java class. A simple Java class is a POJO class, which is having not a difficult class, a plain class. A plain without any flavors. Without any flavors means, I mean, inheritance, encapsulation, all that stuff I don't want to put here. A plain class is a plain old Java class. Plain old Java object, we say. P for plain old Java object. Okay, so I know how to do that. Good. The next thing is you should know how to create objects. Yes, we know that we can create objects by using new keyword. And the other approach is class.forName also. So the first approach is static approach. The second approach is dynamic approach. Static, dynamic. So for convenience or for easy maintenance, static way of coding is not good. If you do coding in a static way, it is difficult to do changes later. Static changes are difficult to change. Dynamic changes are easy to change. Always dynamic means easy to change or easy to interrupt, whereas static means hard coded. Hard coded. If you design an application with a hard coded code, it is difficult to change. If you design an application with a dynamic code, it is easy to change. Okay, so object we can create in a two ways: using new keyword, using a dynamic approach class.funName. Using the simple dynamic approach principle, Spring build an empire using the simple principle. Using the simple principle, they designed a big framework. Yes. And they made our life easy. They made it everything simple. By making things very dynamic, they made it simple. Okay, I don't want to make it again complex. Okay. So instead of a static way of object creation, recommendation is create a dynamic way so that your application code will be very much dynamic. So what is the advantage if application code is dynamic? If application code is dynamic, it will be easy to you to maintain. If you want to retire some code or if you want to discard some code from your application, easily you can discard it and you can apply new code there. Yeah, these words may be little strange for you, but when we really apply it, you will realize it. You will feel that it is as easy as like removing a SIM card from your phone and adding a new SIM card. Okay, so that much flexibility you will get on your application if it is a dynamic approach. If it is a static approach, your application will become like a CDMA phone. You can't change it. You need to use it as it is. If you want to change it, entire application itself you need to change. Like entire phone, you need to throw it in dustbin and you need to buy a new phone. If it is a CDMA phone, if it is a GSM phone, yes, you can change any network. Similarly, when you go with new keyword, your application code also you need to imagine that it is like a CDMA phone. If you go with the class.for name, it will make your application like a GSM phone. So which one you will use? You try to use class.for name. Still, if you think that you want to use new keyword, you can use it. Okay, but you never become a good developer. So if you want to stand out different from others, make your application as much as a dynamic. When somebody asks you why you created in such a dynamic way, you can tell them that my code will be very much dynamic so that it will support feature changes easily. In future, when you want to do changes, it is easy to change it. Okay, so dynamic approach is always recommended. Spring used the same principle. Okay, so Spring used the same principle and Spring also creating object for you. Instead you using new keyword or instead you using class.forName approach, Spring internally used it and creating objects for you. Okay, so once again if you see class.forName example here, create objects with reflection. Usually these classes are from reflection. Okay, reflection packages. Now it is in this new instance method will give you objects and all. Yeah, basically in reflections so many things are available. I don't want to go in depth into it. Okay, for now see class dot for name. Dynamically I am giving a class name so that this class is capable to create any object. Dot new instance, whatever class name which is available in this package, student classes, employee classes, whatever it is. When I pass them with fully qualified path com.rbu.sms with the folder name including, when I pass this class names, it will create object. So instead of running directly, go to run configuration, which application create objects with the reflection application and command line arguments com.rbu.sms.employee. Employee object created. If I don't want that, see flexibly, I don't want employee object, I want a student object. Okay, so you don't change any code, change only input. Now it started creating student object. Excuse me. So it given great flexibility to you to change it. Same class is able to create student object as well as employee object. So it is easy to me to choose whichever I want. Like whenever you try to take a print option, it will show you multiple printers. If you have multiple printers at home, it will show you, do you want to print from HP printer or do you want to print it from something color printer? Multiple options it will provide to you dynamically. Similarly here you can give whichever option you want. So that flexibility you are getting here. Okay. So instead we using this class dot for name all this approach just just for creating objects apart from nothing it will provide. Whereas Spring is providing not only creating objects. Okay, just creating object is a zero point 0.5 job for it, 0.5% job for it. Apart from that, 99.5 more percent features we have in it. That means Spring is providing lot of features apart from it. So in Spring also we can create objects dynamically. How? We need a configuration file. We need a configuration file. There we have to configure our classes. You want to create student object and employee object both also you create. You want to create 1,000 classes objects you create. Mention all your classes here. Mention all your classes here. Simple tags we will use. Bean, we will give ID, any unique identity. Okay, STD for employee EMB. And here we have one more attribute class is equal to your class name. Exact package name dot class name. Okay. And what about this? This is DTD. We called it DTD doc type definition. While writing XML file, right? You should not use your own tags. My name is Naveen, so that I'll create a tag Naveen and I'll put some code here. It won't allow. If you try to put your own tags, it won't allow. It will show you error. It will say, it will say, so there is no such tag is allowed. The content of element beans must be description, which means what it is saying is whatever tag you mentioned that is not there. How it is able to recognize that? Because of this DTD doc type definition. This document whatever tags you have that definitions are mentioned here in this DTD. In XML language we will say this will validate, DTD will validate your tags. Doc type definition. Okay, this document definitions will be available here. Whatever tags are allowed, right? That all tags mentioned. So you can't use the tags which are not available apart from Spring event tags. You should not use other tags. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And nothing to worry about the Spring XML file going forward, right? We will avoid XML also. No need to write much code in XML. Time being, you just see how I am doing it. Earlier, right? Whenever we implement applications, controller classes, DAO classes, all classes, we go here and we used to configure them. I used to configure my controller class, service class, DO class, blah 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 blah. I used to add them. A lengthy XML file I used to create and add. But nowadays we are not using XML. We slowly avoided. Spring itself is avoided that to make employee job easy, they avoided it. We will see. We will see how much pain adding many classes into XML file and how they reduced it. That is also a beautiful concept. So whichever classes you have, you need to configure your classes into XML file, and the next thing you need to load it into a class here. So a class name is class path XML application context. Here you need to pass your XML. That's it. As soon as this statement line executes, right, it will read all your configuration from the Spring XML file and it will start creating objects. Which objects? Whichever classes you have mentioned there. Whichever classes you have mentioned there. Now we will talk about them. who is this and what it is doing it, what is the need of it, everything you'll understand. Okay, we will talk about containers now. We will talk about containers. We will talk about containers. Okay, so first basic thing, we understand how to create objects, but who is creating that objects, that you need to understand now. Okay, containers. Importance of containers you need to understand. Okay, now the container meaning in Java, container meaning whoever is managing your object, whoever is dealing with your object, whoever is creating your objects dynamically, they are the containers. Okay. Whoever is creating objects dynamically, when you implement your application, right? Containers will create objects of your application classes. Whichever classes you will write, right? Containers will create objects of your application classes. How? Dynamically. Then we will call them containers. Then we will call them containers. Whoever is creating dynamically, they are the containers. Is it? Yes. A container will create objects dynamically of your application. This is the first quality that containers should have. Okay, a container should have capability or quality. What is that? First thing, it should able to create objects dynamically. Okay, have you came across any such containers before? Have you guys seen any such containers? Imagine you created a class but you didn't create an object for it, somebody is creating it. If you came from, do you guys know servlets? Yes. No. Yeah. So there is a servlet API in Java. Okay, I don't want to go depth into that, but let me tell you how we will develop servlet applications. For web applications, right, we will use servlets. For web applications, we will use servlets, but nowadays we are not using them. Okay, so for web applications, we used to use servlets classes for web app. Okay, so this is my web application. This is my web application. There I have servlet classes. Servlet classes I'm using. So who will create that servlet classes objects? Once we done with this web application, usually what we do, we place this application into, we will place this application into Tomcat. We used to place this application into Tomcat. It's a special software. Tomcat is a special software. There we used to put it. Apache Tomcat. There we used to place it. Apache Tomcat. We call it web server actually. You might heard about servers, right? Tomcat is a web server. Tomcat, Apache Tomcat, Apache Tomcat. Yeah. So this is the Apache Tomcat software. So here in this software, right, this is the web server. Actually, we need to start server from bin. When you start this server, we will have start option. When you call this start, it will up your Tomcat server. When you click on it, right, actually it is not starting now, but it will start your Tomcat server. It will start your Tomcat server. So this server will be allocated to a port number like 80809090. Via that port we can able to access it from anywhere. From my computer and from your computer also you can access if you know my IP address. From browsers, you can go to any browser and you can access my application. So to deploy web applications, we will use this software. What this software will do, when you start Tomcat, when you start it, right? When you start Tomcat, will have two options: start and stop. Servers we need to start and stop. Usually, when you deploy your application, you will start it, and when you have some repairs on your application, you will stop it. When you see some problems, you will stop it. So when you call start, Tomcat will do what? It will read your web application, whichever application you implemented and placed. Where we will place? Generally in Tomcat, right? Once we done with servlet application, we will place that application inside web apps folder. Here we will place. Yeah, even in production scenario also we do the same. We will put our application here. Let's say it is a student management system. We will put that student management system software, whichever we implemented with controllers, presentation layer, DAOs. Complete code we will put here. As soon as we start Tomcat, it will read your application classes. And if it find any servlet classes, if it find any servlet classes in your application, right, it will create objects for them. It will create objects for servlets. So can we call Tomcat as a container then? As soon as you start Tomcat, it will read your servlets and it will create objects. Yes. Dynamically it will read your class and it will create object. So we can call Tomcat also as a container. Tomcat also a container. As it is creating servlet objects, we call it as servlet container. As it is creating servlets objects, we are calling it as servlet container. Same way, Spring also, right? Spring also will create your objects. When you code your application with now in Spring, we will have lot of classes. We will have lot of classes, right? Even in servlet scenario also, not only single servlet, you will be having business classes and DO class also. So here I have a controller class and I have a business class and I have DO class also. I have many classes. Combination is a application. Anything in servlets or in Spring or in struts, wherever it is. All these classes combination we call it as a application. So I have application here, something student management system, and many classes I have for it. SMS application, student management system. And this application I wanted to deploy and run it. If it is designed in Spring, right? If it is Spring based application, if it is a Spring based application, this application classes, controllers, DAOs, business classes, everything will be deployed. Do we need any special software like Tomcat? No. If it is a Spring, you no need of having a special software. Spring itself came up with the self container. Means Spring saying, no, don't buy any special software. You can run directly. Separate packages you didn't require. You need not to buy them. Spring itself coming up with self-container. It is having self-container. Like your Tomcat container, you can start and stop them. You can start and stop it. It is also came up with self-container. We call them IOC containers. Okay. So what we call them? We call them IOC containers. What is IOC? Yeah, we will know about IOC later. Okay. Inversion of control. Okay. Definition is inversion of control. IOC stands for inversion of control. Inversion of control. Okay. So we have IOC containers in Spring. We have IOC containers in Spring. You can start and stop them. What they do during start and stop. When you start IOC container, it will create all these objects, controllers, business, DAOs, whichever classes you have written. Why objects required? Without objects, can't we run applications? No. Your code running means you are creating objects. So objects are mandatory in Java or .NET. So I need to create controller objects, business objects, DO objects. But Spring is saying you don't take that stress and you don't hard code it with new keyword. I'll create it for you. You just relax, write your classes. I'll create objects for you. So in Spring we have IOC containers. They will create these objects of your controller business DAOs. During start, they'll create. During stop, they will destroy. They will clear it. So here this IOC containers names are, there are actually, importantly, there are two, but I'll give you three names. Bean Factory, for interviews purpose, you can use this. Okay, Bean Factory is one container. We call it as core container, Bean Factory. Application context is the another container. We call it as a J2EE container. We call it as J2EE container. And we have one more container which is web application context. We call it as web container. So how many containers we have? Core container, J2EE container, web container. Oh, this many we have. So which one I need to pick? So during end-to-end application, when we implement end-to-end application, right? UI, controller, business, DAO, everything. We will use in real time, we will be using this one only. Which one? Web application context. Web application context is the one that is used in real time. Web application context. During our practice, we practice on application context. Which practice? During our fundamentals practice. During our fundamentals, we will use application context. After fundamentals, while doing end-to-end applications, we will be running it on web application context. Why can't we use or can't we run fundamentals on web application context? No, and not required. During running end-to-end applications, Spring will use it. Spring internally is using it. So you need not to bother about it. Same stuff. Both are having same stuff. Okay. So what are they? They are the containers. Are there special softwares like Tomcat do I need to download from Apache website? No, nothing. They are simple Java classes. As a simple Java class from Spring jar files they given. I have shared the jars link, right? You downloaded the jars and added into your class path. As part of your jar files only, these softwares will come. I mean, these classes. These are not special software. These are simple Java classes that are available from your Spring jars only. Under your Spring jars only, we have all this. So you need not to download it as a special software. So these are the containers. The one is Bean Factory. Second one is application context. The third one is web application context. Bean Factory, application context, web application context. What are all these? These all are IOC containers. Spring is having IOC containers. What is the need of container? Containers will create objects of your application classes dynamically. What is the need of dynamic? You know that. You can give example. Okay. So we got clear context. Why containers are required. Containers make my application dynamic so that it is easy to maintain. So which container going forward I am going to use in Spring? IOC container. Is it only one container? No. We have three flavors. Core container, advanced container, I mean application context, J2EE container and web container. In real time we use web container only. Application context is similar to that only. And core container can't we use? No, we will not use that actually. But for interview's sake, right, I'll give you an example on Bean Factory also and why that is not recommended also. I'll explain. Okay. So during tomorrow session, we will see the differences between, okay, tomorrow session, the differences between core and J2EE. Okay. So in tomorrow session, we'll do for tomorrow differences between core container and J2EE container. This is our tomorrow topic. Differences between IOC containers. Okay, this is our tomorrow session. Okay, yeah. So once we learn about the container, right? Basically, this is what the container, whatever leaves line number 9. But you need to know how it is functioning internally a little bit. Then you will get a lot of flexibility. Okay. Otherwise, why we should spend 1-2 days on this simple line means it is doing so many miracles internally. So once you understand why we need it and how it is functioning, it will be very much flexible to you.